Why are we seeing these protests erupt into such violence? Because, of course, we have seen protests before over the killing of black men by police, sadly. But why are we seeing these protests escalate to this point?
Well, we've seen protests that started off as peaceful. A lot of these Black Lives Matter protests, not even necessarily the corporate Black Lives Matter, but just people who are, for the actual idea of Black Lives Matter. Starting, we even saw some looting as well amongst a lot of neighborhood citizens in Minneapolis. But this widespread violence that we're seeing now is not even as a result or have anything to do with George Floyd. I mean, we've been seeing over the country that these protests have been infiltrated by radical leftists such as Antifa that we know from the Pacific Northwest. And it's spread over the country. A lot of people are trying to say that it's white supremacists and things like that. Now the left has been exposed for showing what they've actually been doing all this time. But if you look at the fruit of what the Antifa people are doing, churches being burned in Washington, D.C., and things like that, these are not things that, quote unquote, white supremacist Trump supporters would be doing. So, I mean, we look at the fruit, we look at the outfits, we look at what they've been doing, we look at the fact that Antifa's been doing this now for about 3 or 4 years. And those chickens are starting to come home to roost, unfortunately. But it's a real shame that they're using this horrible tragedy as a way to insert themselves into a national anarchist thing that they're doing right now. It's a real shame.
Why have we not seen President Trump make an address to the nation? Of course, we've seen him speak out on Twitter. He did speak at the SpaceX launch on a Saturday about the protests. But would it not help to ease tensions if he actually directly addressed the nation and called for calm?
Possibly, but I do think that, unfortunately, due to our very combative media out there, it's like they would take his call for calm and then it would be sliced and diced and dissected and made into even more of a dramatic thing or even more of a way to try to accuse the president of racism. Honestly, a lot of times with Donald Trump is pretty much damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. I think that in the midst of all this protest, no one's looking at the fact that the actual killer who killed George Floyd, someone who President Trump and whom everybody else in the administration, pretty much every prominent conservative has spoken out against, has been charged within 4 days. Whereas if you look back during when Obama was president, and we have the Eric Garner situation that happened here in New York, which is very similar to what's happened with George Floyd. And even after that whole situation, it took 5 years for the Officer Pantaleo to finally get his just desserts. And even during that time in between, for people that are so into, Black Lives Matter on the Democrat side, they surely let Mayor de Blasio and even Mayor Buttigieg out in Indiana run for a Democrat presidential nomination. I didn't see anybody from the DNC making them shut up or making them sit down or saying Black Lives Matter, these racist mayors shouldn't be running. No one had anything to say about that. So as far as President Trump is concerned, I do feel as though if the time comes to him to address the media, will probably be sometime this week. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea for him to address the nation, but this is also a very new development. We're also wanting to see what exactly is going to happen now with all this unrest. But I don't think necessarily him addressing the nation is a bad thing, and that's something that could possibly come this week.
Do these riots that are taking place, are they taking away the message that protesters originally wanted about the systemic problem of racism in America? Is it being completely overshadowed now by what's happened with these protests turning violent?
Absolutely. And I find it quite curious that after the Ahmaud Arbery situation and even this situation, both situations in which people on the right and the administration responded, very well, seeing the humanity of both of these men that were killed, seeing that their killings were both wrong. I just find that it's really weird now, after having such a good response to the administration, we have all this random violence now being sprung up across the nation. And once again, like I was saying, this is Antifa. This is the radical far left who are now agitating and using Black Lives Matter as a way to go in and push the anarchy. There's a video actually I put up on my Twitter today of a young lady who was a Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter affiliated person. I don't know if she actually was officially in Black Lives Matter, but she was peacefully protesting, and she actually caught 2 Antifa people red-handed spray painting Black Lives Matter on a building. And it's like she stopped them because at the end of the day, it's like you people are non-black people, as Antifa is mostly, a white hipster thing, coming into our neighborhood. You're damaging a Starbucks in our neighborhood, then you're putting Black Lives Matter. So of course, black people are going to be blamed for it. So we're seeing this all over the country, unfortunately, and it's a real shame that the far left is just using and co-opting this horrible tragedy to spread their horrible message.
Right. Antifa aside, and certainly there are people who are going out and just trying to cause chaos. But going back to the original message of George Floyd being killed by police, do you think that this is a turning point for race relations in America?
It's definitely a turning point, but unfortunately, this isn't something that we haven't seen before. The turning point, though, is the way in which it was handled. Like I said, I'm very happy with the way that, the administration, law enforcement have come together to charge this guy within 4 days. Right now, it is murder 3, which I personally believe should be murder 2. But maybe once we get more information about, there's actually now people are saying that these people knew each other. George Floyd knew his killer before. So maybe once more details come out to be bumped up to a murder 2. But we have a charge. We have a policeman that's fired. We have this within 4 days. So, I mean, there is a turning point. I actually feel like as far as prosecution, things of that nature, things are getting better. But what I would love to see is I would love to see a real conversation and real legislation to address a lot of this. I mean, we have a Congressional Black Caucus that's been sitting there for years and years and years, and yet they're silent on this. They don't do anything about actually having a legislative solution. It's all about get rid of Trump and Trump is racist, whereas President Trump's actually responded to this really well. So I would love for the people who say that they are for Black Lives Matter, who are protecting Black lives, and the people that we elect over and over again, I would love for them to be able to come together with the president and offer a solution for this. Because, I mean, the solution's obviously going to be legislative.